This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
Well, Barrett, I was always interested in the entertainment industry, and really for me, law was late in the equation. I got exposed to live theater as a very young child in kindergarten.
Media Boss Podcast is brought to you by two of our new partners. One is Pantheon. I can't wait to tell you about them later. And brought to you by Convert and Flow. You're going to learn so much about them. But now it's time for the Media Boss Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Media Boss Podcast. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I'm excited to be here. I hope you're excited to be here too. And I have a great show. And you probably already knew that because I have a great guest on here as well, which I'm sure you knew. If you listen to the show regularly, I always want to let you know I have a great guest coming up with me and a great show. Now, for those of you who are wondering, what is the Media Boss Podcast? This is a podcast for those of you who really want to reach more people to bring them into your cycle. Now, let me tell you why that's important. People grab their information through one form of media or the other. You think about yourself. You get your information through one form of media or the other. Well, my thing is this. If you don't have your information through any form, through all forms of media, you're going to miss some people. If you only focus on one area that you're going to get people, you're going to miss all those other people that could be your paying customers, but they don't know where you are. So what I want to make sure that you understand is that if you can incorporate your business in all forms of media, you won't miss anyone. So that's what the Media Boss Podcast is for. I bring on people here to show you how they're using media and how it's affecting them and how you can do the same thing. Okay, now, what I want you to do is also make sure you're subscribed to the Media Boss Podcast. Make sure you are sharing the Media Boss Podcast. Let everyone know that you are paying attention to our podcast. Now, I like to start off every episode with something I like to call the Media Minute. And what is the Media Minute? The Media Minute is where I just share something with you that can either help you or just inform you or educate you, something I think you guys ought to know. And I want to stick with the subject of podcasting. One of the things that podcasters do that are successful and the ones that don't do that are not successful is they're not aware of the audience. They're not aware of the audience. Some of them just want to talk, and they're not aware of who they're talking to. They're not aware of what their marketing is supposed to be going toward. And they don't even have a goal a lot of times because they don't know who their audience is. I suggest that you find out who your audience is so that you can put your information in places where they can find you. So that is the Media Minute for today. Now it is time for me to bring on that great guest I told you about. And I have to say, he's somewhat of in my mind, he's somewhat of a pioneer. He is the first lawyer in the state of California to launch a website. That was back in 1993. I can't even lie and say I was real young then because I wasn't. But he wrote a book on podcast law. So you think he knows a little something? I think so. He launched Entertainment Law Update podcast back in 2009. And he was early in the whole podcasting era when everyone else wasn't even thinking about it. He was there. And he had a solo practice in entertainment law since 1992. Who am I talking about, you ask? Well, you shouldn't have to ask if you know who I'm talking about, because this is Gordon Firemark. Gordon, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast.
Hi, Barrett. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Man, I'm glad to have you, man. And first of all, I got to say, man, I love the lighting, the background. That is so cool. You have the nicest setup. It feels like it'll be some nighttime romantic music type of setup. Right. and guys, y'all have to tell me, does he have the coolest voice or what? I'm just saying.
Well, thank you very much. I was joking beforehand. I wasn't exactly born with it, but the good genes anyway.
He said he grew into it. That was hilarious. I'm thinking if he was born with that voice, but that's hilarious. So Gordon, entertainment law. Why entertainment law?
Well, Barrett, I was always interested in the entertainment industry, and really for me, law was late in the equation. I got exposed to live theater as a very young child, in kindergarten age, 5 years old or so, when the high school kids I was in a K through 12 school, and the high school kids were putting on a show. They invited the kindergarten class to the rehearsal, and I was mesmerized. It just blew me away that what was possible with lights and staging and curtains and scenery and sound and all that kind of stuff. And so that got me hooked at a really young age. Got into junior high school. We had moved across the country by then, and I was getting into some low grade trouble with my friends, and just silly stuff. But somehow the school principal singled me out and said, "Hey, I want you to run the lights and sound for the school variety show." So that pulled me back into that area again, and that was the beginning for me of working, in school, of course, as the sound guy for the high school plays, working professionally in theater and theme parks and things like that, doing lights and sound, and into college, where I started as a theater major and shifted into radio, TV, and film. So it was only in my senior year of college that the idea of law school, a professor suggested it, and I laughed it off and thought about it for a while, and then said, "What the heck?" I was applying to film schools to go to graduate school for film, and I didn't get into film school, so I ended up getting into law school. So the universe was telling me something.
Well, at least you had a good story on getting into law. I have a person I used to work with in television. She became an entertainment lawyer only because she ended up having to sue her job, and then the suit didn't go the way she wanted, and she said, "You know what? I'm going to get into entertainment law." So.
Yeah, I actually had a situation where a script of mine that I'd turned into a script writing class somehow ended up on television as an episode of the show that I'd written as a spec, and I never had been contacted about it. Yeah, it turns out someone associated with the school, I'm not going to name names, but had submitted it on my behalf, and then kept the money and took credit for the script.
Well, I hope your suit went well.
Yes, I did.
Good. That's all I wanted to know. So now, as far as podcasting, I guess like you were a pioneer in the podcasting era. So, how did you get started in that? And what kind of trials did you deal with? No pun intended.
Well, it's interesting. I got started with content marketing. I started my practice pretty much right out of law school. I worked for a firm very briefly. That wasn't working out. I didn't like the kind of work we were doing, and especially didn't like the people I was working with. And so I started my own practice and started marketing my practice with a print newsletter that I sent out by mail, sticking stamps on copies of this thing going out, hundreds of them. Then email came along, and I started doing an email version of the newsletter, and set up a blog before blog was the word for these database-backed websites. And then I discovered podcasting when a host from television that I watched, a guy named Leo Laporte, who was a radio and TV guy, he started a podcast after his show was canceled on the Tech TV network. And so I went and found that, and I was listening. I thought, that's really cool. And then right around that same time, a fellow contacted me and said, "Hey, I do a podcast for video producers, and I'm getting all these questions about legal stuff. Would you come on and be a guest and answer the questions?" And so I did that. And a couple of weeks later, he says, "I've got more questions." And that pretty much turned into a show we did every couple of weeks for about a year. And then his job said, "No more moonlighting, none of this podcasting stuff for you." But I was hooked. So that's when I started my show in 2009. So
wow,
that's a long time.
That's a long time. You're right. But most people don't last 4 episodes. I mean, so
right.
So you've done. Wow, that's incredible. So what type of ups and downs have you gone through as far as from the podcasting perspective?
Well, the ups and downs, obviously, when you're starting out, there's technical hurdles you have to overcome. And I'm enough of a geek that I was able to sort of figure it out. And back in the early days, you had to hand code the RSS feed. There was no automated, software to make it all simple. But so I figured that out, and I got that up and going. But there were always, one little glitch or another. We'd have a problem connect. My co-host is in Dallas, Texas. I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah. So we'd have problems with the connections and technical kinds of stuff, and then have to edit. And but honestly, because I came out of that television production background, content creation has never been a real challenge for me. I get it. Finding the audience is the challenge. And, we're a very niche topic. The show's called Entertainment Law Update, and it's a pretty high level discussion of entertainment, legal concepts and cases and things like that. And so we're not talking to your average Joe on the street, and it's not entertainment gossip. We're talking about the big copyright infringement lawsuit and what went on and how come the court decided it this way and those kind. So it's really aimed at other lawyers, and just the raw number of entertainment lawyers and folks interested in entertainment law in the world is just a few thousand people.
I was wondering, that was going to be my next question.
So I'm really happy with our numbers. They're small by podcast standards, but I've got,
I'm sure they're consistent,
between 1,800 and 2,500 people downloading each of those episodes. I think that's probably the majority of folks in that group that are interested. And people talk a lot about small numbers and getting dejected because they only have a few hundred downloads or something like that. And the truth of it is, if you were able to stand up on a stage in front of 200 people every week and get your message out, that would feel pretty good. It
would feel great.
So it's all just a matter of perspective and how you look at things.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, first of all, you're providing a service. That's the one thing you're doing. You're providing a service, like you were saying about just giving content. Yeah. And I think sometimes people get caught up, like you said, in the audience numbers. But I always tell them, look, are you getting a message out that you feel that people need to get out, that you need to get out?
Right.
Because I think that's more important, because the person that hears it is the person that needed to hear it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I mean, ego is not a small part of it. I actually do like the sound of my own voice, so to speak, and enjoy being, in the pulpit, if you will. But sharing that message is important. Part of my whole mission as a lawyer is to educate people so they don't need me. It's kind of counterintuitive.
That's a good point, though. I get it.
Yeah, but it also positions me as the expert. I mean, it's great marketing for my practice. I'm not trying to make money directly from the podcast. I mean, if we actually just signed up for some sponsorship stuff, but that's not the main reason we're doing it. It positions us as experts in our field. When somebody goes and searches my name on Google or the subject entertainment law, we always pop up pretty high in the rankings, and it's good marketing just to have this media content out there for people to find, and then they hear our voices and they get to know and like and trust us, and that's the stuff that's how people decide who to hire. So
do you ever get any so I know you said like lawyers, do you ever get lawyers to try to push back at you on something that you may share?
Yeah, we actually invite our listeners to let us know if we got something wrong or give us a comment, and we have a tool that allows them to record their audio if they want. You'd be surprised how rarely they actually do it, but we do have a circle of people who routinely send us ideas or you botched that one, Gordon, or that kind of thing. And I'll just be transparent and share that information and say, hey, looks like we got it wrong. Here's what so and so says, and people love to hear their own name on a show.
Exactly.
So,
it's the greatest sound in the world.
Yeah, I wish we had more engagement, frankly, but something's better than nothing, and I'm grateful for the folks that do participate.
I love that. I mean, I think that is so cool. Now, do you get a lot of listeners, or I shouldn't say like you already told me your numbers, but who are not in the legal field, who just want to find out some things?
I think we have some. I haven't done a real deep dive into the numbers on that because I wouldn't know where to start, to be honest. I mean, I hear, because I'm connecting with other lawyers all the time. They know me. I hear from people, oh yeah, I heard your show this week or whatever. Every once in a while, someone, in the related fields, the talent agencies the producers and folks, people who have an interest or have been exposed to it in a way that, whether for good or for bad, they start to pay attention. And, I know they're out there, but it's sort of hard to quantify.
Now you do TV too, as far as yourself?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what you mean.
Like your own show?
I have a video live stream that I do once a week called Legit Podcast Pro, where I'm just sharing usually a tidbit of news or legal principle about something that is podcasters are encountering in the world. Sort of again, it's back to that Q&A format. There's no shortage of content when you just answer people's questions.
That is a very good point.
Even if you don't treat it as answering a question, people's questions will stimulate the idea. So someone will send me a question, hey, what do I do? Is it okay for me to go out and capture images with my 360-degree camera out in the mall?
Yeah.
And so I will turn that around and not answer it as a question, but just say, here are some of the issues you need to think about if you're doing XYZ. And so it's really easy to have a stream of a flow of content and yeah, so that's the live stream. We do it every Thursday afternoon.
And that audience is for podcasters.
Mainly, although I know
Yeah.
there are folks that are, paying attention. Well, some people pay attention just because it's me, which is nice
Right.
to hear. And
But
some
of
are,
course. I mean,
other media,
important.
there are YouTubers out there watching, and there are bloggers that are paying attention. The legal issues are largely the same um, across at least across the digital media. A little different in film, a little different in television, but digital media stuff tends to line up with each other.
So for podcasters, what are some of the legal things that they do need to be aware of, or some of the problems that you find a lot of them face?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big one that everybody's always talking about is, hey, I want to use the first 4 bars of AC/DC Back in Black as my intro for my podcast, right? And the copyright. The guys who wrote that song own a copyright. The record company that recorded that song owns a copyright. You got to get permission for that kind of stuff, even those little tidbits. And there are a lot of misconceptions about it. Well, I'm not making any money, or I'm only using a little tiny bit. And people throw out the term fair use, but they don't really understand what fair use actually means. And so, that's part of my messaging is to inform and educate about that. Another thing, and this is really my crusade, and you did it right, by the way, is having all of your guests sign off on some kind of a release, an agreement that gives you their consent to be recorded, for the recording to be distributed, and promise, that they're not going to have any right of approval or to review the stuff before it goes out, and they're not going to get paid, and you can use it in any and all media now known or hereafter devised throughout the universe. Right. And so many podcasters don't bother. And then what happens is the guest 6 months, a year, 5 years later comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, take that episode down. I don't want that there anymore. And a lot of podcasters are just sort of okay with doing that. I don't want anybody up there that doesn't. But when you have a sponsor who paid for that episode, well, now you're taking it out. Do you give the sponsor their money back?
Good point.
And sometimes if you're doing journalism and you want to make sure that information that they shared on that episode stays there. Had a case a few years ago where it was a sort of a hot controversial topic, and the speaker was on one side of an issue, and then later the podcaster covered the other side of the issue, and the first one got all bent out of shape, and podcaster said, hey, it's 2 sides of an issue. I'm doing journalism here. If I take yours down, then I'm only presenting the other. It's not fair. And that one actually turned into a big fight because there was no release.
So when it comes to the copyright thing, because it's funny, because I get people asking me questions like that too, and I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. But I had a question. I had 2 questions actually. One, because I heard something about you can use a certain amount of time of a song. Is that true?
No, that's one of those misconceptions. It's a myth.
Okay, that's what I thought. And the other thing is that I had someone. This is an interesting one, because I talked to a lawyer I know who's a copyright and trademark attorney, and she told me this. But I had someone ask me this. They interviewed someone who actually is the artist for the song.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know if they could play a little bit of the song. And I talked to the lawyer, and she said, well, that someone usually owns the rights to the song. And she said, look, everything's negotiable. But the thing is, the person that owns the rights to the song is the one that has to okay that. So I just
and most recording artists, even if they wrote the song, they are probably signed with a music publishing contract. That means that they've transferred the copyright to the publisher, who will go out and turn it into money and share that money with the artist. But they no longer own the composition. And likewise, the record company owns the recording. So when you go use those things, you're not, the permission from the artist, it's nice to have, but it's not the permission you really need.
Now, how often does someone come after the artist?
We don't see a lot of the coming after. Partly because in podcasting, there just isn't the money there that justifies big lawsuits. But what does happen, because it's digital media, it's on the internet, is the owners of the material just issue a takedown notice, a DMCA takedown. And, you see it's high profile when it's YouTube or Facebook, because the post disappears and they put something up. But when it's a digital media hosted on Libsyn or Blueberry, one of the podcast hosting companies, the episode just goes away. And it's no longer in the feed. It's sort of the same idea as that takedown. And if you had a sponsor, the sponsor's not happy that episode they paid for is no longer in the feed. So
Yeah.
And sometimes the sponsors are on the receiving end of those.
I'm glad to know that I'm sharing correct information. So they don't want to listen. Hey, I did share the information.
Right. So lots of misconceptions about how it works. And well, nobody's getting sued over this. That's right. Nobody's getting sued because it never goes that far. The episode gets taken down and it disappears from the feed. And unless you go to the trouble of getting it put back up, that's the end of it.
That's the end of it.
Yeah.
So guys, we're here talking to Gordon Firemark here on the Media Boss Podcast. What I'd like for you guys to do is stay right there because I'm not done with them yet. So we're going to talk a little bit more when we come back right after this break. So stay right there. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Do you have a podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Media Boss Podcast. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews, and we are finishing up our interview here with Gordon Firemark. He is the podcast lawyer, and we are learning a lot of things from him. And he probably answered the question that a lot of you have about the copyright and music and so forth, which many of you have dealing with your podcast. And he talked about making sure that you have people sign a waiver, sign a release, so because you can get in trouble later on with things. But Gordon, I wanted to ask you about your blog. Can you tell us about your blog?
Well, the blog is really, that's my main law firm website at firemark.com. And I just nowadays it's mostly just the show notes for the podcast episodes. Every once in a while I write an article about something that's come up or expand on an idea that we've covered on the podcast or that I've done on the live streams and so on. But it's just about being searchable and visible as many places as I can be.
I love that. Did y'all catch what he just said? Searchable and visible. Because Gordon, one of the things that I tell people is that we've been taught the wrong thing. We've been taught find that avatar and go to where you're at, go to where your people are. And I'm telling you, no, make yourself searchable and findable for them because they're the ones looking. So
yeah,
I always say McDonald's doesn't come knocking on your door. McDonald's makes it so you can find them.
What's interesting is if you ever get a referral, somebody mentions your name because somebody's asking for someone to help with whatever it is you do. Mm-hmm. The first thing they're going to do is Google you. They're going to look up your name on a search engine. And it's great if you have a website that's just here's who I am and about me kind of stuff. But it doesn't tell people what they really want to know.
Right.
How does this person think? Are they smart about, they're smart to have a website, but, so writing a blog, doing a podcast, putting videos out, all of that gives you a chance to show the kind of person you are, the kind of professional you are, and to share a point of view. And so many people in creating content are really trying to stay so neutral. I don't want to alienate anybody with my content. Excuse me. And I think that's a mistake. I think take a stand, take a position. Look, there are going to be enough people on any side of an issue that if somebody doesn't like your particular approach to the better mousetrap, they can find somebody else.
They can.
And there are going to be plenty of people who want your version of that.
Exactly.
So the scarcity mentality is a real detriment to creating good content.
I agree.
Be polarizing.
And the people pleasing mentality. You're not going to please everybody. You're not gonna,
that's right. And you're never going to get everybody in the business. You're not going to get all the business there is anyway. So why not work for people who are on the same page as you with
It's kind of like that old marketing adage. If your product is to serve everybody, then you have no product. Because nothing serves everybody. So just understand that. So man, I want to give you an opportunity to share anything that you're doing right now that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, I've got all kinds of stuff out there. It's part of my mission to educate and provide training and things. But, a lot of people don't want to hire a lawyer. Either they don't want to, or they can't afford to hire a lawyer to do the legal stuff for them. And by legal stuff, I mean, form a company if you need that, and register your trademark and contracts with your team. If you have people helping you make your content, you got to have good contracts with them because you want to make sure you own what they create for you. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're monetizing, you got to have contracts with the people paying. So I've got programs and things like that, and to help people with the do-it-yourself approach, because there's a lot of that ostrich with the head in the sand. Well, if I don't know what to do, I'm so overwhelmed, I'll just bury my head in the sand. I want to make sure that people have the information and the tools available. So I've got courses. I guess what I would say is the best place to go to find out more about what I offer is my website at gordonfiremark.com. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of a clearinghouse for my courses for podcasters. I have a course called Easy Legal for Podcasters. Tells you exactly what it is. And there's another one called Easy Legal for Digital Entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow.
But, I think the best way to find out more about me, especially if you are a podcaster or a media creator, is to download my free podcast guest release. And you can go to podcastrelease.com and grab that, and that'll get you into the circle, the inner circle of Gordon. And I should make that up. I should do something with that.
The inner circle of Gordon.
and you'll start getting email from me, not too often, but sharing some of the stuff I'm creating and information and how to access my products. So
I love it. Gordon, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the Media Boss Podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much, Barrett. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, everybody, Gordon Firemark, make sure you're supporting him. Make sure you're following him and take him up on his offers as well. Say, guys, I got something for you real quick, especially for those of you who are brand new. I want you to go to www.5waystoPayingClients.com. 5waystoPayingClients.com. A lot of you, I hear all the time, people say that my biggest challenge is I've got people that are interested, but they're not paying me. Well, what I want to do is, this is my complimentary gift from me to you. 5 ways, the number 5, 5waystoPayingClients.com. Do that, and I have my gift from me to you. Now, we usually leave the Media Boss Podcast different than everyone else does. Those of you who know, you know what I'm talking about. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and I'm going to show you how we get out of here. Now, I'm encouraging you guys to stay after this break. You know why? Because I have an opportunity for each of you, that's right, each of you, to get a free vacation stay somewhere. Well, free, discount, however you spend it, it's up to you. But I want to show you how to do that. So stick and stay right where you are. We'll be right back with more of the Media Boss Podcast.
Watch
podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. And I told you Gordon Firemark was the truth. The man he told you some great information that's going to help you guys to get on with your career and do it legally. How's that? So guess what? I have something for you guys. If you got something for me, all I want from you is love. So if you go to patreon.com/Media Boss Podcast, you show some love to the Media Boss Podcast. We got some gifts, some perks for you guys just for showing us some love. I just gave you guys a complimentary gift. I want you guys to take advantage of it. That is www.5waystopayinclients.com. Go there, get my free training. It's a gift from me to you. Now, for those of you who really want to grow in media, who really want to do something with your business in media, if you want to really attract more people, I want you to come to my challenge. It's the Make Money from Media Challenge. The Make Money from Media Challenge. All you have to do is go to makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com. How simple is that? Now, this is 5 days, not full days, but there's a few hours, 5 days of me teaching you how to incorporate writing, audio, video, film, social media, all into your business so you can learn how to incorporate media in your business. Come to the Make Money from Media Challenge. I look forward to seeing you there. And if you really want to do something, come in as a VIP. You can have that option to come in as a VIP. Now, I also want to make sure if you guys want to start a podcast, text the word podcast to 929-244-4323. 929-244-4323. Not only will we help you get this podcast started, we'll show you how to have one done for you where you don't have to do all the heavy lifting, okay? How's that? So last but not least, I want to have each of you subscribe to the Media Boss Podcast and make sure you are sharing it. And here's the one thing I want you to do. If you go into the iTunes and leave us a review, a positive review and a good rating, each and every one of you, and then you post it, you screenshot it, post it into the Media Boss Club on Facebook, the Media Boss Club on Facebook, post the image of your review. I am going to send you $100 hotel voucher for you to use anywhere in the country. Anywhere in the country. So I'm going to send you $100 hotel voucher you can use anywhere in the country. All you have to do is leave us a good review, and you go ahead and send that to us at Media Boss Club on Facebook, and I will send you a hotel voucher. How simple is that? So I told you it was worth staying around, right? So guys, now how do we leave here on the Media Boss Podcast? I told you we do it different than everyone else. So get ready. Those of you who know, do it with me. We're going to count down from 3, 2, 1. Media Boss out.